Well, as I keep saying, one of the real highlights for me for the CentreCourt MBA Festival has been this opportunity to talk with alumni from all of these top schools, find out a little bit about the path that they've taken, choices, even the things they were thinking about before business school, and of course, where that adventure has taken them next. And I'm delighted to welcome Celina Pedrosa, who is an NYU Stern MBA graduate from the class of 2018. Celine, thank you very much for being with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Matt.
Now, of course, public performance is part of your background, and I'm sure it was something as Issa and the rest of the Stern admissions team look at both analytical skills, but the EQ that I'd love to talk much more about, because you had been part of a radio station while an undergrad at Brown. So you studied international relations, and then from there had taken a path working in retail and home furnishings with 1 Kings Lane. So where does the idea of business school emerge on this sort of retail path for you?
Sure. So yes, as you mentioned, I joined 1 Kings Lane, an e-commerce retail platform that sold home decor online in 2012. And it was a rising startup. We went from probably about 100 people to 500 in a few years. And to see the trajectory of how that business grew inspired me to understand how would I continue to scale a business as a leader. And because it was, we started as a small team and grew, I had a lot of exposure to different parts of the business. And that made me want to be a better general manager at the end of the day. And ultimately, an advice that I got early in my career was, you want to have your boss's job. And when I looked at my boss's boss, he had an MBA. And so that inspired me to think about, okay, if I want to get to that position one day, if I want to be VP of something, VP of a team, what is going to get me there? And I decided that an MBA would be one of those things. And that, again, was such an inspiration to me to understand, how do I invest in myself? And how do I become a better leader and general manager at the end of the day? So that's when I started to explore the option of a full-time MBA.
Right. When you look at some of the great choices, and of course, Stern in the heart of retail in New York, both from a bricks and mortar perspective, but an e-commerce perspective as well. What was it about the program? Well, we mentioned EQ, which really is sort of integral to the program. What drew you to Stern?
So it was a few things. I think, as you mentioned, I wanted to stay in New York, and there is really no better school to choose than NYU itself. It was the alumni. So as it turns out, NYU has an amazing network in New York itself. And I was exposed, again, really early on in my career at 1 Kings Lane with many Stern alums, both from the full-time and part-time program. And it almost felt like the program chose me to a degree, because the network was just so integral in my kind of comeuppance in 1 Kings Lane. And then also it was the industries that recruited. So I really appreciated the wide diversity of industries that recruited at NYU, which included not just finance and consulting, but entertainment, media, retail, to your point, and especially as I saw in my time at NYU, technology as well. So you think about the big tech firms like Google and Facebook and Amazon are now huge recruiters at NYU. And those are, I guess, were three of the reasons that really drew me there. And then, of course, the people. Every person I met in my application journey from NYU was nothing short of amazing. And they really connected with me. I connected with them. And it just felt really like a homecoming for me. Right. So it just, again, it almost felt like the program chose me. At the end of the day.
In your profile and sort of description of that 2-year experience at Stern, you detail some of those different areas. It's strategy, entrepreneurship, and innovation, entertainment, media, technology. So really, was this 2 years to then be able to explore and play almost with different fields and what felt right for you?
Absolutely. And one of the other reasons I chose the program, which I didn't mention, was the experiential learning part of it. So Stern has a lot of amazing courses that allow you to go out into the field and experience not just New York, but the different industries that New York has to offer. And I was able to explore, again, all of the different facets of my interests through the program. So if we think about a class like Stern Consulting Core, I was able to do a consulting project with HBO. And so there was a lot of intersections, again, from my interests of strategy, entertainment media, and then also, exploring that innovation entrepreneurship side coming from a smaller startup. So I was really thankful to have that background and really thankful to have that experience to, again, safely explore and try to see where I best fit within the business world.
Right. Now, of course, you're a senior manager e-commerce at Kraft Heinz.
Yes.
And we were talking earlier about how the company has had to adapt to the pandemic and, online groceries, an industry that's changing so fast. Do you feel that you've brought Stern and the classroom learning with you for that sort of agility that's been required?
Absolutely. So, something that Stern really prides itself in is its sense of community building and EQ. And there's never been a time more than this where emotional intelligence, EQ, and as you mentioned, agility, adaptability, and resilience is as important, again, as it is today. So I've been super thankful to be part of a company that has responded in such an emotionally intelligent, empathetic way, really putting the consumer first, putting the people first. And that's something that I had learned at Stern too, is it's not just always about the business, but it's about not only the people who run it, but who do you run it for? At the end of the day, I'm trying to get our product to the end consumer so that they can continue to feed their families and feed the world.
Now, of course, there are no shortage of finance courses at a school like Stern, alongside strategy, marketing, all the complete curriculum. How does the school sort of thread this idea of an emotional quotient into the program?
It's everywhere. It's in the classroom. It's when you talk to administrators. It's when you talk to alumni, and it's I'm trying to think of the best answer for you. It's essentially, it's everywhere. So like if, for example, if I was, having some trouble in a class, I could, the professors were always incredibly approachable and saying, okay, let's work through the problem together. Here's, the answer, here's the end answer, but let me show you how to get there. And I think that's a great demonstration of EQ, because it's not just saying, oh, well, you're wrong. It's more of, okay, let's help get you there to the end, and again, to the end goal. And
you talked about earlier with Stern alums that you'd reached out to in your initial sort of research. Do you think that was a common bond, and that other individuals in the classroom had all similarly wanted to sort of explore that side of doing business?
Yes, and it's again about building community, and it's about just being there for each other. It never felt very much like a competition. It wasn't like, oh, there's one job opening and it's either me or the other person next to me. It's, the tide rises all boats. So that very much is the sentiment that I felt for both alumni and current students while I was there. Alumni were incredibly generous with their time. They're like, do you want to meet for a 7:30 a.m. coffee? Amazing. I'll be there. Do you want to have a follow-up call? There, I'll be there as well. It really felt like a sense of sponsorship almost, because, to have alumni be willing to be a sponsor and advocate for you in the recruitment process is really a treat. And it's really a special thing that I think NYU brings to the table. And yeah.
Of course, in the admissions process, it's a highly selective school, and trying to understand where the MBA program fits at this stage of your personal and professional development. And you might have been thinking yourself, where do I see myself post MBA? Now, it was interesting that you actually did an internship with one of the big four. You're at PwC in a management consulting internship. But then ultimately secured this great position with Kraft Heinz. Maybe you can speak to that just in terms of how that internship enables you, to try a different sector, a different function, and where that can sort of lead your thinking.
Absolutely. So I wanted to be able to use what I learned at the MBA in the best role, right? And wanted to just try to try something new and try something that was out of my comfort zone, which I feel like is a big part of why someone goes into an MBA, is to get out of your comfort zone. And going into consulting was one of those. And I had a great summer. It was a great summer. A lot of great Stern alumni worked there and supported me and was willing to talk me through the process and everything. Ultimately, it wasn't the right lifestyle choice for me. But what I encourage every current student, prospective student, is you never know until you try, and you never know until it's in front of you and you're living that life, until you can decide whether that's the right choice for you. So I'm so thankful to have had that experience, so thankful for Stern to have given me the opportunity to have that experience. And I wouldn't take it back, because it, as you mentioned, it's just part of the journey. It got me to where I am today. It got me to Kraft Heinz. Got me to San Francisco, which, as I think anyone from the East Coast has a dream of going west. So I'm very thankful to, again, have had the opportunity and have that be part of my journey.
Well, you spoke earlier about the role of location, and of course, Stern right in the heart of New York, the connections that provides with recruiters, industry, entertainment, tech, everything else that you'd mentioned as being part of your experience. But it's also worth then reminding perhaps viewers of opportunities that the program then gives you on a broader scale, and now heading to the West Coast. Have you found that Stern alum are heavily present on the West Coast too?
Yes. I think especially some of the 2 to 3 years out of graduating, once people start thinking about the second iteration of their post MBA life, I've found a lot of alumni on the West Coast, and just as smart and empathetic and warm as on the East Coast. I've done a few recruitment events and alumni events out in the Bay Area, and it's just been amazing to be able, again, to connect with current students and alumni, and have, a common thread of, oh, you took that professor, I took that class too, and I really appreciated it. Oh, have you, will you be at this happy hour? It's been such a great community to come into, again, especially coming from 7 years in New York, moving west, definitely was an adjustment, but I couldn't have, I think, adjusted as well as I have without the Stern community out in the Bay Area.
Right. Now, as we look at next year's admissions cycle, typically with an economic downturn, obviously this pandemic, and how the economy tries to respond from that, it's likely that Stern's application volumes will jump even higher. As you think back on the sort of the self-reflection and introspection that was required, particularly for a school that places that emphasis on EQ and IQ, what would your sort of one piece of advice be to an applicant to the school?
An applicant of the school, I would say be selfish. So, the MBA is really a time for you to explore and for you to put yourself and your career first. And it's difficult. It's difficult not to kind of go with the crowd and go with, what everyone is applying for. But it's 2 years to really dedicate to you. And if you can make a case or why you deserve to be there and why you, can be a business leader and great alumni in that space, there's no reason why the admissions committee wouldn't take a second look.
Great. Well, that pathway to be your boss's boss, you're certainly
exactly
taking a big step in that direction. Thank you very much, Celina, for joining us for CentreCourt, and stay well, and
you too.
enjoy the return to San Francisco very soon.
Thank you so much.